Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis, on this magical mystery tour that we call Ole Miss Fandom. Thank you very much for joining us today from the palatial Central Florida studios. Before we get started, I do want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. In this Delta variant COVID world that we live in now, wouldn't it be nice if you could plan a vacation and then have somebody on the ground that can understand the rule changes so you're not caught off guard and don't enjoy your vacation? You can do that at Travel and Cruise World. That number is 1-800-330-7461. Again, that is 1-800-330-7461. Ask for Scott, tell him we sent you, and you can see Central Florida like a local. That's travelandcruiseworld.com. So thank you very much for that. Also, real quick before we get started, if you're interested in watching the show, you can catch on all these networks that you're watching right now. But we're on Twitter at The Stephen Willis. And also subscribe to Ole Positively. That's going to be the distribution model that we go on Twitter moving forward. Ole Positively, and everything else will be retweets. You can probably catch it wherever you're catching it now, but the source will be Ole Positively. Catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast, POMcast. And of course, you can catch us on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe, hit the bell. You'll know not only that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. You can catch us on, let's see what else, Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. We don't really promote that too much. We don't do too much for it. We're thinking of avenues that we can do just Twitch-specific things, and just in the future till we can do that. We're also thinking about all sorts of stuff like premium events that you can Patreon and things like that. This thing is really growing. It's really taking off, and thank you very much. Also, thank you for sharing, liking, retweeting, anything. This is a social media only show. We don't have a place that we can send you. So every time you retweet, every time you like, every time you share, it goes to a new audience. So it can increase our circle very much. So please retweet, share, like the show, follow, do whatever you need to do, and so other people can see this product, because that's how we grow our base, is through social media. This is a social media only show, and the way we have it planned requires that. Also, you can catch us on our podcasts at Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Pandora. We're also on smaller podcatchers, but we would be here forever talking about them and naming them. It's only a half-hour show. So, yeah, it's really great. The big news of yesterday, Texas and Oklahoma were extended. Let's see, they were extended. How can I put this? An official invitation to the Southeastern Conference. So now the next step will be accepting that. And there's Board of Regents meetings at both places, both Texas and Oklahoma, where they'll accept that. There will be statements after today. You'll be able to hear the Texas and Oklahoma side of it after today. You can understand their thinking. That storyline will open. And this has just been a fantastic thing for the week after SEC Media Days. It's turned into a 2-week celebration of the Southeastern Conference, other than the fact that 2 weeks ago, it essentially made it irrelevant. All the news that came out up until Wednesday at 2 o'clock made it irrelevant. But we've got 2 weeks of all SEC talk all the time. Bob Bowlesby, as we talked about yesterday, is throwing a major temper tantrum. And this could get interesting. Now, we'll talk a little bit about expansion first, and then we'll drop into how it affects Ole Miss. Okay? We're going to get back into that. We're going to start transitioning back to Ole Miss as this goes. This just happens like while nothing is going on, this filled that void. So that's the reason we covered it. That's the reason we covered it like we did. Honestly, with everybody we had on and every angle that we took on all the shows, you'd be hard pressed to find expansion coverage that's even remotely close to this. So we got the Texas perspective, the OU perspective, the Southeastern Conference perspective. And it's all on our YouTube page if you need to go back and listen to it. So, the Big 12 is throwing a major temper tantrum right now because their plan, and this is another way it affects Ole Miss, is to basically lock Texas and Oklahoma into that 2025 date or get the buyout money. Basically make this transition as difficult as possible. Basically, this has been an ugly divorce. This is going to get nasty on their end. It's not going to really affect us. It's not going to affect the SEC, all of that stuff going on. But it does affect Texas, Oklahoma, and the Big 12, and apparently the AAC. Who knew that the American would be the one that would big boy the Big 12 after this was over? Think about that. The American is the one that's big boy in that. So Bob Bowlesby throwing a temper tantrum, trying to get all kind of legal, and they're going to make this transition as difficult as possible because this is an ugly divorce, and Texas and Oklahoma is somewhere near 75% of the media rights at this point for the Big 12. So that conference is dead. It's now below the American in the number of teams and the market share and the brands of the teams that are in it. The American reaching out, trying to get 4 or 5 of those teams, that makes total sense. The Big 12 trying to survive, that's what they're asking is for those 8 schools, to gamble their own future, to make it seem like they're willing to risk everything in a cakewalk. Who's going to be the school that's left standing? Who's going to be the Kansas State or Texas Tech or Iowa State? Who's going to be the last one standing? Who's going to be the last one holding the bag that ends up having to go to Conference USA or the Sun Belt? Can you imagine Kansas State in the Sun Belt? It's possible. And these schools have hitched their wagons, literally, in some cases, to Texas and Oklahoma for so long. I don't think they understand they're institutionalized at this point. I don't think they know how to survive on their own. They're kind of like Texas A&M was when they came into the SEC 10 years ago, like Missouri was. And you saw how Texas A&M just lashed out and reacted during this expansion. It's because that's how they thought this went. They fought these wars for so long, they're still fighting them. But eventually Texas A&M came around. It's like, hey, we got this. We over me. We over me. And you could actually see a conference do that, and you could see a little bit of calmness envelop the Texas A&M fans and administration and all that, because the SEC has this. Now, there's other stories that are out there, and there's going to be far-fetched ones. Whenever a story like this breaks, Texas and Oklahoma, people automatically go to extremes. It's like, what could happen? It's like the SEC-ACC merger. And it's like, well, why would that happen? What's the benefit for the SEC if that would have happened? What's the benefit for ESPN would that have happened? ESPN has a network on both sides. You're already monetizing that as much as you can monetize. I don't know if having a 31-team Super League of the ACC and the SEC would necessarily provide what you want. Now, I can see a scenario to where the SEC, the ACC, and maybe the AAC all merge together. They form a 48-team super conference with promotion and relegation. 12 teams per division, 4 divisions, you work your way up. Now, ESPN and everybody, yes, that would make a ton of money. As far as TV rights go, that would be compelling because at the same time the playoff is happening, because for all intents and purposes, that 48-team playoff would be the national championship. And it could potentially grow to 60, 65. But I'm thinking, maybe grow into a 60 team, add a couple of other teams. And you have promotion and relegation with 5 or 6 divisions. And the same time that the playoffs happen for the national championship, the promotion playoffs happen. So you have a 4-team playoff at the top, or a 2-team playoff, or a 4-team playoff at the top for the top teams. But also in each division, the bottom 2 teams and the top 2 teams of the next division can actually play for advancement. The winner of that gets to stay in their division or move up a division. I think that would be a really cool thing to do at the major conference level. I don't think that would work in the Super G5 level. I don't know if that would work in the FCS level. I don't know if that would work in D2. But I think that would work in Power 5 and Power 5 alone. And March Madness, all that's going to change as well. There's going to be a huge upheaval. But whenever something like this happens, whenever news like this breaks, people rush to extremes. You need to pay attention to what is actually relevant, what is actually real, and what actually benefits the parties involved. There's a lot of harebrained ideas that are coming out that don't really benefit but one side. And that's not going to happen because there's no benefit to the other one. Texas and OU happened because Texas and OU wanted that tons of money, and the SEC wanted that tons of money. If you get a huge super conference and it keeps going, you get a law of diminishing returns. Per team, the average amount of money is going to go down just because it's not going to prorate. So, I don't know, The inclusion of a merger of Duke, of Pitt, Syracuse, Boston College for the SEC, that just represents a shrinking of the pie of what everybody can get. Now, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and to some extent North Carolina State, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, those guys can talk. Those guys can give us a call. But I don't know about the whole thing. It just seems very far-fetched to me. So when we come back, I'm going to take a short break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the divisional setup and what this means and how potentially they are going to schedule this. It's going to be really cool. And is going to be really cool. And I want everybody to stick around, have fun, and when we come back, we'll talk all about it. Stick around. All right, welcome back to the POMcast. Segment 2, having a good time. OU and Texas officially invited to the SEC. That should be rubber stamped today by the Board of Regents at Texas and Oklahoma. Welcome aboard, Sooners and Longhorns. I do want to say that. But I imagine everything is going to just go swimmingly. So it should be a lot of fun. But I do want to talk about divisions and what this means. This is going to be an interesting setup, right? This is going to be to east and west with a line that can go vertically, that can actually, for the first time, divide teams. Old rivalries renewed. Old time slots renewed. More marquee matchups. This is really just a perfect marriage. But if you just move Alabama and Auburn to the east, and you move Missouri to the west, because that's what it is. Two have to go to the east, one come to the west, and you have two coming in, and it's going to work out to where it's going to be 8 teams apiece. With that, Ole Miss and LSU gets this Halloween time slot back. The only rivalry, the real serious rivalry that would be potentially missed, but many would argue is completely played out, is the Alabama-LSU game. That is the only one that would be affected by this move. But in response, LSU, on top of Texas A&M, would get Texas and Oklahoma within the division. Instead of Alabama and Auburn, you would get a neighboring state instead of a state, 2 states over. So you get Auburn and Florida back. That's a big rivalry that was interrupted by the original move to divisions in 1992. Auburn and Tennessee, that's a big rivalry that was affected by the changed division. These are schools that get to play annually again. The rivalries that the SEC was so concerned with back in the day, Alabama and Tennessee, that's a divisional game. Auburn and Tennessee, that's a divisional game. It's going to completely work out. You don't have a need for a permanent cross-division opponent, which means on top of scheduling completely balanced divisions at this point, you don't have a need for cross-division opponents, and you can just schedule every year 2 different teams. So every 4 years, if you sign with Ole Miss, you're going to play every school in the SEC during your time in school. Now, you might not necessarily be able to go to that school, but you will play every school. All 16. Done deal. And it's the easiest and most simple scheduling model that you can think of. The East-West divisions with a vertical line. Basically, the Mississippi-Alabama border is the distinction between East and West. You have a potential for an SEC East network, and you have the infrastructure in place for an SEC West network in Austin. They already have the studios. It's already built. It's for the Longhorn Network. This all it will take is a rebrand, a repurposing. You have an SEC East channel, an SEC West channel, and an overarching streaming service. It's really the simplest thing that you can possibly think of, and I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what they're going to do. It's going to be pretty cool. So, yeah, that is my opinion on that. Now, after that, I do want to tell you about what just happened and why we had a little bit of drama this morning. I had to take my dog to the vet. He was had a major upper respiratory issue and was coughing and hacking and dry heaving, and it's just obviously uncomfortable. And it's for somebody that can't stand coughing. It just hurts so much after a while. There's unbelievable sympathy with that. But when we went to the vet and talked to the vet, we found out that this is going around. This is, they had 5 cases of this morning. And the University of Florida is investigating what is going on. Now, as you know, right now, I'm not a virologist or anything like that. But as you know right now, Florida is a hot spot for the Delta variant. I think 20% of all cases nationwide are in my state. But this mutation, the vet told us she thinks how transmissible it is. It may be starting to affect dogs. And you see situations with boarders and groomers and things like what kennel cough used to be a thing. This is like kennel cough, but it's not. It's not detectable with whatever kennel cough is normally detectable as. So, they gave us a steroid, they did some blood work, and they're going to send it off to the University of Florida. But she wasn't talking like it was anything fatal. I should say that. But who is to say the next mutation won't be? And that is something, whenever anything's going on, you can do whatever you want to the human. You leave the dog alone. It's like I saw I Am Legend one time, and then whenever he killed the dog, no more. No, I'm not going to watch that ever again. Because they just don't know. They're just the man's best friend. They're the whole 9 yards. And it just kind of irks me that this might be a side effect of all of this going on with the vaccine. But I'm going to give you guys several minutes back. I'm going to take care of my dog. I did want to get on and do a live stream today and give you guys something. Potentially some news coming Monday with us and what we're doing and and how we're going to be distributed in the fall. You can see we're setting ducks in a row now, and you guys will see why before too long. So it looks like it's shrinking down and everything's going down. No, there's a method to the madness. It's all about efficiency for football season and maximizing the Positively Ole Miss brand. So we're going to give you a few minutes back today, and I hope everybody has a good time. And be wary with your pets what's going on, because that's kind of a scary thing, and especially in places with the Delta variant in a hot spot. So this weekend, enjoy it. Welcome Texas, Oklahoma. And we'll be back Monday with more of our numerous shows on the channel, and we're going to have a good time. So, as always, hotty toddy.